members save on travel. Members save on travel.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Wheels on the Bike. It is Sunday, March the 24th, and winter's back in Toronto. So, what are we doing today? If you are joining the live stream, this live stream is going to focus all on bicycle touring. I have 10 questions I would like to address, 10 questions that were posed on Instagram and YouTube. And as we ride around today, I am going to be answering those questions. So is anyone joining me? Hey, hi Turbo Dave, hi, welcome. You were on American Feetser's live stream recently, right? Nice to see you there. Hello, welcome. It is a beautiful sunny day indeed, a little bit cold, therefore the face mask. But I think as we ride around, I'm going to warm up a little bit and see how things go. All right, so without further ado, I am going to start riding. Whoops. Maybe not lose all my cables. Let's see if we can remedy that. Here we go. Let's make sure my connection is all good. Yeah, NJB was there as well. I do watch his live streams and I enjoy them. It's amazing to see different places around the world in real time, right? Awesome. Okay. Let's get on. Hello everybody if you are joining the live stream, feel free to say hi in the chat. If you're interested in knowing which bicycle I am riding, you can find this out by using the !bike command. !bike. And if you want to know what the weather is like today, that's !weather. Welcome to beautiful Humber Bay. Winter is back in Toronto. I mentioned this. We had a pretty massive snowstorm on Friday. But it's all starting to melt again. And hopefully spring is going to be fully present in the next few days. Okay, I want to take you to a lovely spot before I start addressing the questions. I mentioned I have 10 questions that are specific to bicycle touring, and I will be addressing them today. Okay, let's just meander through. Passing on left, thank you. If someone could let me know how the audio is, I hope it's all right. If it needs to be adjusted, please let me know, and I will happily adjust it. I see more people have joined the live stream. If you're open to it, let me know where you're connecting from. I am riding around Toronto, however you pronounce it. City in Ontario, Southern Ontario in Canada. Woo! Lots of speed bumps here. Rich 1880, sound is great. Welcome to the chat, Rich. Thank you for letting me know. This area of Toronto is known as Humber Bay. Humber Bay is known for its Humber Bay Arch Bridge, which we've seen on the live stream multiple times, and also for its beautiful parks, one of which is currently under construction. Humber Bay is also known for its beautiful views of the Toronto skyline. And maybe, just maybe, I'll get us close to one of those views. See how the camera does, picking up the stunning views of Humber Bay. Okay, a lot of bumps here. Ooh, also quite a bit of mud ahead of us. Well, this is perfect because, you know, bicycle touring is sometimes about mud as well. So perhaps this is perfect timing. I do have my winter boots on today. I don't have my studded tire on anymore. I took that off a couple of weeks ago. Okay. Here's the first location. You should be hearing the beautiful sounds of Lake Ontario. Gorgeous smile, hello, welcome to the chat. Hello. Okay, let me get the first question here. And see if I can display it on the screen, and then I'm going to have a chat. Let's go. Where are my questions? Okay, so before I answer the questions, I'm going to provide a little bit of context about the type of bicycle touring I do. So for anyone who's newly joined the stream, what am I doing? I have 10 touring questions that various people have posed on Instagram and YouTube. They are specific to bicycle touring, and before I answer them, again, the context. So the context will really provide you with a lot more insight as to why I answer the questions the way I do. So first things first, I travel solo, self-supported typically, and I've only really ridden in North America by bike. North America, specifically Canada and United States. I've traveled extensively I rode my bike across Canada. I traveled in Ontario as well by bike. And I go on bicycle tours not because I love to ride my bike, but rather I use the bicycle as a vehicle to allow me for traveling slowly, for just really experiencing the environment around me. And as a result, I ride super slowly. I don't ride long distances. I don't like riding more than 80 kilometers a day. That's my happy distance. And when I pack, I choose comfort. I understand that comfort can sometimes come with a weight penalty, and that's okay with me. I don't care about being aero. I don't care about having the lightest gear. And, you know, in fact, I think that the lightest gear is often not very resilient on a long distance tour. So it can break, it can be damaged easily. So, and also the obvious, I'm a middle-aged woman. And with that come, you know, periods, perimenopause. All of that needs to be considered. Men don't need to worry about that so much, but I need to consider that. So I choose comfort, I travel slowly, I enjoy, I love chatting to people, etc. All right, question 1, let's address that. Kristen F asks, how to get started as a beginner? I want to try and it's overwhelming. Right. So I think that when you think about all the things that you need to consider when you tour by bike, it can very easily become overwhelming, right? You have to consider the bike, the mechanicals, then all the things that you need to bring. So what I would say, go for easy wins. Start slow. Maybe do an overnight trip to a friend's house or to a family's place where you can just ride your bike, stay overnight, come back. The second thing you can do is repeat the trip, but stay outside. Bring your camping gear, bring your stove if you're planning on cooking your meals. Test it all out to see, I can lower this, to see if your gear works, how it works. Do you need to dial anything in? If you don't have gear, borrow it. In fact, that's what I did. I borrowed my camping setup from my brother, the very first tour I went on. And then once you're comfortable with carrying all the gear on your bicycle, knowing which type of gear you need to be comfortable on a bike tour, you may in fact realize that, hey, you don't want to do self-supported touring. Maybe you'd rather stay in a motel, hotel, or some sort of accommodation. So you can make those choices as you discover more of what you like. Another thing to keep in mind is that you can go with a friend, right? You don't have to go solo. You may decide that you would rather go bicycle touring in a group. That's an option. Or you can meet up with a friend. Right, the very first bike tour I went on, I went with a friend. So my friend drove me to a location. We spent the night at a campground together, and it was great to have that camaraderie of somebody else, to bounce ideas off of somebody else, and that made things a little bit less threatening, as it were. I do have a bicycle touring playlist, and that is linked in the description of this live stream. So if you are interested in kind of the beginner's tips, all of the mistakes I've made, or many of the mistakes I made along the tours, some of which I still keep making, that is linked in the description below. All right, do we have any questions here? Gorgeous smile, hello, okay. Steffi Star, do you have any other exercises to improve endurance while biking? So I don't have exercises to improve when I'm biking, but I do stretch, and I do have a roller to do myofascial release. I do have a lot of stretches that I do typically at the end of my tour or at the end of the cycling day. A lot of them focus on releasing like the glute muscles, my leg muscles, of course, because they take a beating, and again, myofascial release through a roller. And I do bring like a really teeny tiny roller, and I roll my muscle, and I find that really keeps my legs in optimal shape and also prevents any knee injuries for me. I did get into a situation where I injured myself on one of my first tours because I just did too much too quickly without proper gearing, and as a result I learned how to ride my bike slightly differently and also what to do while on tour. So yes, I exercise afterwards as to just get everything working smoothly and release all the stress of cycling throughout the day. Gorgeous smile, what tips for new beginners? So hopefully all the tips that I share will actually answer that question, and maybe that first question provided a little bit of insight already. Gorgeous smile, thanks. All right, let's get rid of question 1. There we go. Whoop. Oh. There we are. Question 1 off the screen. Let's see if question 2 is related to question 1, so I want to answer it right away as well. Up on the screen, yes it is. Okay, question number 2 is from Debras16. Were you nervous your first solo tour, and how did you get over it? Yes and no. I was very excited to go on my first solo tour. I started touring in the pandemic, during the pandemic. The first solo tour I went on, or the first tour I went on, was a short one, about, I think 5 days, 4 or 5 days, so not very long. This is the tour where, again, I got all my gear from my brother. I didn't have a tent, I borrowed it. Oh boy, child is very unhappy here. I borrowed my gear, and then I went with my friends to a location. We had a great day. We spent a night at a campground, and then I started riding. That tour, what made me uncomfortable about that tour is my lack of knowledge of anything mechanical. At this point, I do have a little bit more insight into how to fix basic mechanical issues on the bike, but on my first tour, I really didn't. I knew how to fix a flat because I had gotten a flat. I didn't know how to take the wheel off the bike properly. When I did take the wheel off, it messed up all the gearing, right? There is an actual way to take off a wheel properly. So that impacted me. So that first tour, I left my bike in a very hot car, and so my fenders warped. so the next day when I took it out, fenders were rubbing, had to take off the fenders. To me, that was like a huge thing, mechanical. That was like the end of the tour type mechanical issue, but it, you know, in hindsight, it wasn't. But because I didn't have that skill set, it made me very uncomfortable. But with all these small fixes that I was able to make, like indexing my gears when I, you know, eventually got my wheel on correctly, like taking off the fenders, all those small wins in terms of mechanical insights and knowledge that I gained myself by just troubleshooting made me a lot more confident. So a lot of people say that, you know, I don't have the mechanical knowledge of how to fix bike, and so I can't go on tour. And to that I will say, don't worry about it, just go. There's always somebody who will help you. You will 100% always find somebody who will help you, and if not, then you will figure things out. You know, worst case scenario, you can pack up your bike on public transit, somebody's flagged somebody down, and you will get help eventually. So don't let lack of mechanical issues stop you. But that was, in fact, my biggest fear when starting off my bicycle tours. How did I get over it? I still went on the bicycle tour. So hopefully that answers that question. Let me dip into the chat. Okay, gorgeous smile, you use e-bike. So yes, so as my commuter I use an e-bike, but for my bicycle tours I ride the Kona Sutra touring bicycle, and that's not an e-bike, that is a pedal powered beast that I highly recommend to anyone if somebody's looking for a touring bicycle. That is a bike I rode across Canada. That is a bulletproof bike that gave me no mechanicals, that caused no issues, etc. So a great bike indeed. All right, I'm getting a little bit cold because it is cold. So let me hide that question too. Let's ride for a little while. I'm going to take you to another spot in this Humber Bay area and answer a few more questions. Steffi Star, what suburb do you think has decent infrastructure? Suburb like in the GTA? Wow. So I think that I would say that this area, like Etobicoke, is getting better with cycling infrastructure. In terms of actual suburbs like Mississauga, there are a couple of streams back I rode in Mississauga, so you can see that infrastructure there. There's bits that are not well connected. I think a lot of the suburbs, what they're doing is they're trying to roll out some sort of cycling infrastructure. The problem, as there is in Toronto as well, is that it's not very well connected, right? And maybe somebody in the chat can also chime in with that. What do you think? Yes, Steffi Star, yes, in the GTA. Thank you for confirming that. So maybe somebody in the chat, if you are based in Toronto, if you're based in the GTA, let us know. How is cycling in Markham? I think that there are some streets that have good cycling infrastructure, but it's not just connected well. In Toronto, they're working hard. The city is where in the transportation department are working hard in making sure that bike lanes are built to a certain standard now, but they're also connected. So they're filling in those gaps, because if infrastructure is not connected, then it's very difficult for people to move around, right? You can't get places, that may be an obstacle. All right, I shall continue riding and we will address next question when we get to our next destination. Okay, well, let's go. How do you like the views? Maybe I will step outside of the frame and let you enjoy the views. I don't know if you can see the camera, or if the camera is allowing you to see the beautiful skyline with the CN Tower. It is stunning. Not a cloud in the sky today. Stunning, stunning. Gorgeous. Rick, hello. Thanks for joining. Yeah, Rick, we just started, so you're not too far out from the beginning of the stream. Thank you very much. Gorgeous smile. I'm also thinking about starting bike touring maybe need your help. Any tips? Yeah, so like I mentioned, I do have a playlist, a bicycle touring playlist that is really aimed at beginners, and I have links to that playlist and really all the resources that I will be mentioning and in today's live stream in the description, so that you can reference them at any time. The bicycle touring playlist, I kept making those videos as I was learning and making mistakes and discovering things. So those videos were made just in time, or at the time of me discovering it. But you know, like I said, I keep making those mistakes again and again, and sometimes I make the same mistake over and over until I finally learn it, and then I stop making it. Okay. Resorgum, welcome. The place looks nice. Yeah, it does. It is very nice, especially on a sunny day like today. Although it is quite cold. So when I stop and when I pull out my hands from my varmints, which I had to put back on, I do notice it. All right, let's keep riding. Lots of people out and about walking. In the summertime, this area gets incredibly busy because of how beautiful it is and how much space there is. There's a lot of walking paths, and it feels like, oh, there's a fire there. What are they doing with that fire? Interesting. Yeah, so this is just a beautiful area that feels like a little bit of nature just outside of the city proper. Passing the Etobicoke Yacht Club. Quite a few boats. Maybe I will show you. There you go. All the boats are out. So imagine all these boats on Lake Ontario. There's a small marina. We will pass there. Okay. Let's do a Yui. For anyone who's just joining the live stream, welcome. I'm riding in Toronto, Canada, and today in this live stream I am answering bicycle touring questions. I have 10 questions in total. I already answered 2. In a moment I shall address the third one. And as I answer those questions, feel free to ask your questions, feel free to contribute with any thoughts you may have. And I'll take us to the more scenic parts of these neighborhoods here. It has snowed, so there's a lot of mud. My bike is going to be filthy. That's all right. Nothing that a bit of water can't fix. Okay. Woo! Bumpy, bumpy. I see a lot of fire pits here, so there's been a lot of fire. I know that Nowruz, or Persian New Year, was celebrated recently. I believe March 19th, so Happy New Year, everyone. Resorgum, it's sunny here in California, but also a bit chilly. There we go. Rick, you're always struggling with taking too much gear on rides. What's the best way to lighten my load and don't lose weight? Right? I think that, so I mentioned this in the answer to my first question, is like, what is the aim of your rides? Like for me, comfort, for example, comfort is important, right? So when you take gear that makes you a little bit more comfortable, it's typically heavier. And to me, that is okay. My gear is never going to be the lightest because I prioritize comfort. So I think for you, like, what contributes to the weight of the gear? Is it, again, I would have to look at what you're taking on your rides, but are you taking a lot of heavy items because they are older, but they're, you know, very usable? Could you replace it with something lighter? At some point, what is light? How light can you get it without compromising on quality? Specific to touring, sometimes the light, low weight, lightest bikepacking items aren't very good in terms of wear and tear long term. They may last for a season, 2 seasons, and then, you know, you start getting tears, etc. So I know I'm kind of going on because really I don't know what gear you have that may contribute to that weight. So maybe you can share that. All right, let us go on to the next question. Okay, let me see if I can, through the magic of technology, pull that up on the screen. Do we have question 3 on the screen? Red Zergum, your thoughts on touring with the Brompton would be nice. Plus your thoughts on using a smaller front sprocket, on how it worked out. Okay, so maybe I'll address the question on the screen and then I'll get to the Brompton question. Perfect. Here we go. Question 3. Question 3 was asked by Shut the Zuck Up. What a handle. And Shut the Zuck Up wants to know about meal planning and storage. Meal planning is always difficult for me, and that's because I don't cook in my regular life, and therefore I struggle with nutrition on bicycle tours. However, I do realize that I have to eat a whole lot, and if I don't eat, then my physical ability takes a hit, right? So I do recognize that food intake, high calorie meals are very important, and hopefully it's nutritious food as opposed to just eating sweets, which I also do eat. But in terms of meal planning, I typically buy prepared foods as much as possible. And this is once again because I don't cook. So I will not typically buy like meat and then I will cook it from scratch. I will buy canned meat that I will then use with pair it with some sort of steamed rice. So I do eat a lot of rice when I bicycle tour, but I don't buy rice uncooked. I buy it cooked or pre-steamed, and then I just mix it with either canned meat or some stews or some chili. So to have, again, as dense calorically as possible. I learned it the hard way that I tried eating little bits here and there. Prepped salad on its own is not going to work for me. I have to either mix it with rice, so I can have one of those salad packs. I buy those as well, and I mix it with rice. Again, because I've only toured in North America, I always have had access to these items, and I share some of the specific items like the steamed rice that I always buy in the description below. Sometimes you can find great prepped food items at the dollar store, so Dollarama, Dollar Store, Dollar Tree, etc., in addition to, of course, grocery stores. In terms of storage, I do use the Ursack Almighty. So it's a bag that is created to protect food from bears. It is not scent proof. It is made of Kevlar, and it replaces the need of you doing a tree hang. I don't know how to do a tree hang. So I don't know. I also don't carry a rope that's long enough to do a tree hang. How I compromise is I bought this Ursack Almighty. That is, again, been tested on bears being able to get into it, and they've made it so that bears typically are not able to get to it. However, if a bear does get to this bag, they can squash your food, right? What I do pair that Ursack bag with is the Opsack, which looks like a large Ziploc bag, but that particular item is an odor barrier. So it looks like this massive Ziploc bag. I pack all my food that is scented, also my cosmetics that have a scent to them, and that minimizes the scent from wafting out, attracting animals. I mean, bears are just one big animal that, you know, is always at the forefront of people thinking when they're touring out in the wild, Northern Ontario, BC, Alberta. But bears are not the only animals who can cause damage. In fact, I had more damage done by raccoons from being, you know, from leaving bits of food in my bags. I had a raccoon try to steal my pannier that I had left in the vestibule of my tent. Very stupidly so. Stupidly, really, it is the right word. I left my food pannier in the vestibule of my tent. In the middle of the night, I have a raccoon getting into the vestibule, dragging my pannier out and trying to get at the pannier, right? Because it smelled the food. Another instance of a raccoon trying to get at a meal or my food is I left just a little pocket of nuts in my, like a little feed bag that I have on the touring bike. And again, raccoons got all over my bike, tried to open that little feed bag, ended up biting through it, so they damaged it. Then they opened the feed bag. My bike was filthy in the morning when I came to it, just for a little, you know, a little bit of food that they found that I forgot about. So in addition to hanging my food when I am unable to store it, when I am able to store it, I typically do so by putting it in the washroom. So if I go to a campground, I ask to be placed nearby a washroom or some sort of a building where I can store my food. So I put my food pannier right in that washroom or some storage shed. And if that is not possible, I approach people. So typically, again, I prefer campgrounds. And so I would just approach people. Can I store my food bag or my food? Yeah, I typically say my food bag in your car or in your camper. And I just explain the situation. I'm in a tent. I don't want any animals approaching the tent, right? I carry food, etc. So it's always a great conversation, and it also introduces me to people who are camping around me. And we often end up having a nice chat about what they're doing, about what I'm doing, etc. So this is how I approach meal planning and storage. Again, I could be much better about meals. There's another cycle tourist in the city, and her name is Sheila. And she's a nutritionist. She has a nutrition background, and she does a better job at explaining nutrition. So I will place her channel in the description below as well if you want more insight into just food generally. Because again, I love to eat, but I'm not the best chef for sure. Okay, let's see. Let's move on to question from the chat, which was the Brompton question. I'm going to hide this and let's go. Ooh, the chat's been active. Thank you. Here we are. Okay, so Rezorgam, your thoughts on touring with the Brompton? I loved touring with the Brompton. I toured the Erie Canal Trail on my Brompton. Brompton, for anyone who may not be aware, is a folding bike. It has 16-inch wheels. My Brompton has 6 gears. It's really meant for urban commuting, but many people tour on these Bromptons. I did end up swapping the front chainring for a 39 tooth chainring from initially the 50 to a 44 to the 39, and that helps with climbing. My Brompton, I mentioned, has 6 gears. 2 are external, 3 are internal, and so it is not the best climber, but you can certainly climb with the Brompton. Now, the Erie Canal Trail is pretty flat. There are some hills here and there, but they are pretty, they're not mountains. There is some climbing, but not a whole lot. I think that the Brompton is super capable. The Brompton really made me consider every single item that I was taking. I could only take 20 kilograms of load on it, 10 on the front log, 10 on the rear rack. But I still went self-supported. I took all the camping gear with me, and I just needed to really double and triple check what I was taking with me, and it worked out fine. And I just had to do a lot more laundry every single day as a result, but it worked fine. So The 39 tooth chainring absolutely worked out. I'm not swapping it out again. I'm going to keep it. I think 39 tooth chainring, I recently spoke to a mechanic and they said that's the smallest one that will fit on the Brompton with the pedals, not with the pedals, but rather with the crank arms. So if I ever want to make any adjustment to that, I would have to swap out crank arms as well. Rick, you provided some more insight. I think I have a Boy Scout mentality, be prepared for anything, therefore I take everything, lots of tools, electronics, spare clothes. Yeah, so I would say look at your spare clothes and minimize that. That's the first place I would start. Yeah. I was recently helping my mom pack for their holiday, and she was bringing a ton of clothes, and I'm like, get this out. What I consider when I pack for my tours is I have definitely one set of clothing for riding, and I have a separate set of clothing for sleeping in a tent. I do not want to be sleeping in the clothing I've just ridden in, but I typically have 2 changes of clothes. So if you watch any of my touring videos, you'll notice like I wear the same thing over and over again. Yeah, and I do laundry pretty much every day. Sometimes if that's not possible, if I don't have access to water, I do laundry every second day, and it's just hand washing, and it works out fine. So that minimizing how much clothing you bring. And if you're riding in the shoulder seasons, for example, on my Cross Canada tour, I started riding in May through the mountains, so that was very cold. Clothing that protects you right from the cold is generally a little bit heavier, so consider bringing, instead of perhaps 2 items of clothing, bring 1, and see if you can layer up instead of bringing multiple pieces. So that's what I would do. In terms of lots of tools, identify what is necessary and what could get you by, and then what could get you by in getting to a mechanic or getting to a place where somebody may have other tools that you may need that, you know, are heavier potentially. Gorgeous smile, camping, stay hotel. So I do prefer camping, and that's just a financial decision. Camping, warm showers. I will of course not stay at a hotel, but maybe motels. Motels are incredibly expensive in North America. That's at least $100+ Canadian dollars. So that is an expense that I need to consider. I typically have like a $50 Canadian budget per day when I tour. That's what I'm comfortable spending. And so when my accommodation is, you know, $100+, well, that just blows my budget, right? So I certainly do it. I won't say that I've never done it, but I look at other options first, and I will address those in the next question. But I think that maybe let's move to a different location. Yeah, let's move to a different location before I address the next question. Okay, here we go. Let me get organized. How do you like the views, chat? Maybe I will let you see the views. Okay. Joshua, thank you for joining the chat. You personally love stealth camping or wild camping and stay in a campground weekly to shower when I go on long distance bikepacking or bikepacking tours. Thank you for that perspective. Lizzo, hello, welcome. Thanks for joining the chat. So Joshua, you may chime in. There's a question specific to bike touring, or wild camping that's coming up. So hopefully you will stay long enough to offer your perspective at that point as well. Okay. It is such a stunning day, but when I stop, my hands get very, very cold. So I don't know if you noticed, but I started using a stylus to navigate through the questions and yeah, keep things as warm as possible. Okay. I mentioned on the way here that there's a yacht club currently as we're passing on the left-hand side, and in a moment we're going to get to a marina where I'll show you where all these boats typically are parked in the summertime or when the boating season starts. So there we go, we're just passing the yacht club on the left. I see that more people have joined. Hello everyone, welcome to this live stream. We are currently in Humber Bay in Etobicoke in Toronto, Canada. And in this live stream I am answering bicycle touring questions. A number of people, or I have 10 questions to address specifically, and if you have questions yourself, please leave them in the chat and I will be able to answer them as we go along, or maybe others will be able to address them as well. If you're open to contributing to the chat, let me know what the most beautiful place you've toured was. I have a few for sure, but I always want to know where others have traveled that they found stunning, beautiful. Yeah, that was a close pass, Porsche Cayenne. And that was unnecessary. Okay, we have 2 speed bumps coming up. A lot of Porsche vehicles here today. What's up with that, huh? And by a lot, I mean 2. So maybe my definition of a lot is a tiny bit skewed. Okay, we're going to go off-roading, chat. Oi! There we go. So we're now on Humber Bay Promenade. Andrea, welcome to the chat. Here we go. Okay, this is the lighthouse. This is typically where the boats are
super
at.
chatted $6.72.
When the boating season is.
$4.99 from Rick Urbanowski. Next beer is on me. Next beer is on me.
Oh, Rick, thank you for that super chat. Oh my gosh, $4.99. And if that's American, Rick, it's like $10,000 Canadian. Thank you. Wow, I appreciate the super chat. Thank you. We'll definitely put it to some good use. Okie dokes. All right, let's go to the next location and I will look at what's been happening in the chat and address the next question. And look at that little gazebo here. It's ours, chat. We're gonna take over. Let's take over. Yeah. There we go. Let's get a good view of the boats. Right? Here we go. How is that for a parking spot? Oh, not ideal. I'm just looking at the preview. Maybe let's move a tiny bit. Here we go. Okay. What do we have? What do we have? Rick, not a question, but when you were at the Philly bike show, I met someone there I think you would really like. She goes by Pam Likes to Bike. Okay, I will look that channel up. Thank you. Another strong woman in the biking community. Thank you very much. Thanks for the compliment. Strong is good. Andrea, hi. I would love to know how much it costs to bike across Canada. Can you share your experience? Sure, I will. So I do have, I did keep a very close tab on my finances as I rode across Canada. Pretty much everything I spent, I have in a spreadsheet. But I will tell you, because I don't have access to it here, what I will tell you is that I budgeted $50 per day for everything. This included accommodation, food, whatever I wanted to spend. I could spend $50 a day. Sometimes I would go over the budget because I needed to get a hotel room, an actual hotel room, right? And I would blow my budget. But then I would be able to balance that by staying at a warm showers host, or perhaps staying at a biker hiker campground, etc. So that is what I spent about 5 months on the road. Please consider that as well. About a month of that was spent in rest days, but I still had to account for those days on the road. So my trip cost me about $7,500. It sounds like a lot, but that's the ballpark figure I believe I have in my head. If anyone else would like me to delve into my finances as I rode across Canada, I can certainly put out a video that goes into a lot more depth about my spending, my tracking, why I made the budgetary provisions, as it were. And you know, I could always spend more. You can always spend more. Many people spend a lot less, and there's a lot of variables to spending less, right? So you consider your accommodation, you consider which food you buy. And one of the questions I already answered, I mentioned that I buy pre-packaged food because I just don't cook. So I do what I can, but of course pre-packaged food, canned food, etc., it costs more. So if you can cook from scratch, or in terms of accommodations, somebody in the chat already mentioned that, Joshua here, so he wild camps and stays at campgrounds only once a week, and so that's another solution. I stay at campgrounds first before ever wild camping. So again, a lot of provisions. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an insight into that question. Okay. Again, Rick, thank you very much for the super chat. Joshua, going over the Rocky Mountains, leaving out of Denver, was the most beautiful trip I've ever taken. Yeah, Rocky Mountains, right? Rocky Mountains are my favorite spot on the Icefields Parkway. Absolutely. Rocky Mountains in Banff National Park, specifically. There is nothing like going 16,000 feet using people power. That is true. Getting yourself climbing mountains, getting yourself up those mountains, over those passes, it's an incredible feeling. It's type 2 fun for sure. I didn't always love climbing those mountains, but it felt amazing when you reached the top. Gorgeous smile, that's good plan. You're learning, fabulous. Andrea, that seems reasonable for 5 months of traveling and living. Would love a video on it. Okay. Busy Beck, hello, hello. Okay, so let's go on to question number 5. Let me pull it up on the screen, see what we have next. Just connecting to something. Are you going to connect? Yes. Boom. Question 5 should be on the screen. There we go. Let me read it out. Okay, question 5 comes from Tamiko Art. Tips on cooking and washing up on the go. So cooking is a popular question. And in addition to what I already answered in the previous questions, again, I opt for more of the pre-packaged or semi-cooked foods because I just don't love cooking, although I fully recognize I need to fuel, I need to eat, and so I cook a lot more while on tour than I cook in real life, which is funny, but again, must be done. In terms of washing up, I'll address that here because that's unique, and I followed up on this question to what she meant by washing up, and basically it's the access to water and the cleaning. So if you've cooked a meal, now your stove is dirty, and you've got some plates that may be dirty as well. If you do use plates, to minimize on the cleanup, I actually don't carry a plate. I eat from my little stove. I have a little, a stove has a little pot, and I eat from the pot, but that still leaves you with a dirty pot. So what do? I do have this wilderness wash from Sea to Summit. It's biodegradable. It's not a dishwashing liquid, although I do carry that as well. And when I'm out in the wild and I don't have access to like a sink where I could use my detergent, my dishwashing fluid, then I use that wilderness wash, and I just I'm okay with dumping the cleaning stuff in the wild because I know that I'm not polluting too much. I'm polluting a bit, but not too much. So Sea to Summit wilderness wash, that wash I can also use to wash myself with, my face, right, my body, and certainly use it to clean the dishes as well. Because I don't wild camp often, or I didn't wild camp often, but regardless, even when arriving to campgrounds that were more like wild campgrounds, that they had a campground, they may have an outhouse, they may not have running water, I always made sure that I have access to water. So if I knew that a campground did not have running water, I would inquire as to whether it had a stream or some sort of a water source that I could then filter, and then that would be my water source. So I did carry a Sawyer filter. That's just one of the filters people carry on their tours. There are others out there. That's just what I had. And if I came to a campground that didn't have running water, I would just filter the water for cooking. Well, I would just boil it. But for cleaning, etc., I would just filter it and then use that filtered water for washing up. I also have, I cut a piece off of a dishwashing sponge, so to have like the one that has a sponge and an abrasive backing on one end, and I use that. So I literally just cut, I think, a third of that sponge, and I brought that along with me as a cleaning item, right? So not the whole thing, like one big sponge is too big, but like a third of it cut off it worked well. I also carry a kitchen sink, and when you hear that, it's like, what? It's a little product. It's kind of like a bucket. It's a collapsible material bucket from Sea to Summit. It's actually called the Sea to Summit kitchen sink. I do link to it in the description below so that you know what exactly that is and what it looks like. But that kitchen sink is perfect for washing dishes. If I have multiple dishes and I can just collect a lot of water in it, wash everything I need to wash. I also use it for my personal hygiene. So instead of a shower, I can wash my feet in there. I can use that water as a bucket, right? Because that's what it functions at. So it's called Sea to Summit kitchen sink, and it's one of the things I never ever leave when I go on tour, because it is so useful to me. Okay. So what do we have? Oh, the traveling guy is in the chat as well. Lots of comments. Thank you very much. Rich 1880. My favorite places to bike rides are Cape Cod, Nantucket, and Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts. Thank you very much. I will look those up. I always want to know what others find beautiful, because again, it just gives us ideas for touring, right? That traveling guy, yes, please do that. Also, if you can give segments of your trip and the places and campgrounds you stayed, would be immensely helpful. You could plot it on Komoot. Yeah, so I actually shared my tour with, there's a Facebook group on Facebook group on Facebook. There's a Facebook group that where people have given or shared their routes with, and so I did that. I will link to that group in the description below if you can come back and reference the video. So my route is actually now part of the community route planning for cross Canada trip. I do have all my rides on Strava, so you will see the beginnings and the ends. And the route that I shared with the community also has a lot of the interest points and my camping points on it already. That traveling guide last year, I had come to my daughter in Vancouver for 6 weeks, loved every moment there. And the cycling infrastructure, yes, cycling infrastructure is incredible in Vancouver. I was very, very surprised, very surprised and very amazed at how good it was. Glad I got my touring bike, Trek 520, nice, and rode it every single day. Yeah. And I plan to come this year as well, or next. The route and places of stay will be very helpful. Yeah, so I would say if you go back on Strava, and when did I ride across? I rode across in 2022. All those points of interest, and I mean, certainly my individual route will be available on is available on Strava. Resorgam, if you want some folding plates, cups and bowls. Yep, so many people bring folding, right, those silicone folding plates. I choose not to carry a plate because it's just one more additional thing to carry, and I'm okay eating from these little pots, so that's good. Fossils, Resorgam Fossils is a good product. I haven't heard of Fossils, but we'll look it up. Mochi Alex, hola to you as well. Should I upgrade my old bike to a new frame? I'm not sure. I don't really know how to answer that question because I don't know what your goals are. Why are you upgrading? Are you thinking of getting more of a touring setup? I think that question is better posed to maybe a mechanic, or maybe in a setting where you can share the picture and share a little bit more of your goals as to why you would want to upgrade your bike to a new frame. Okay, let me close the question, or take the question off the... Here we are, down we go. Okay, you know what, I'm going to answer the next question because guess what, it's a cooking question again. So I think we have question 6 on the screen. Question 6 comes from Putranto Utomo. So while camping, the initial question was while camping and food, and he then clarified that, or they then clarified that, I want to learn how to cook simple meal while camping in a campground or wild camping. So I already mentioned that I don't cook personally in real life, and I kind of do a little bit more while riding on tour, but not a whole lot, and I buy a lot of prepped food. So this may look like buying steamed rice because I don't want to spend 10 minutes cooking rice. That would use up a lot of fuel, so I buy steamed rice already. I love the Tilda brand. They have different seasonings added to the steamed rice, and I just like it. I find it tasty. I used canned fish and meat to mix it with the rice. Tomato sauce, of course, is the staple, easy to add, adds a lot of flavor. I use canned stews, so I just buy them. Canned soups, it is a lot heavier to carry, but that is a weight penalty I'm happy to take because I'm just being very realistic about my cooking habits. I also get dehydrated noodles, those noodles and soup combinations. So I found some great ones that make Polish soups. There's a lot of Asian products that are very similar. So I buy those, and they are great on-the-go snacks. They're not super calorie rich. So often I would have 2 or 3 if I was very hungry, and then supplemented with other food. freeze-dried foods. So whenever I pass by an urban area that has outdoor stores, I love buying these prepped dehydrated meals where you just add water and you've got a meal. They are typically, they typically are very nutritionally dense, nutrient dense, and high calorie, which is important when I'm touring. I love the Happy Yak brand specifically. I link to that in the description below. But this, food is very personal. What I may like, you may not like. If you like more salty products, Happy Yak may or may not work for you. So, it depends on what it is that you're hoping to get from your food. And many people, to save money, many people just cook from scratch, right? That's the easiest way to save money, or one of the ways to save money. If you buy food that is in its natural state, as it were, and then you do all the prepping, all the cooking, well, that's one way to save money. I also get tortilla wraps and various spreads. So Nutella is one of those spreads. I love chocolate, so Nutella. I'm over Nutella now. I ate too much Nutella on my tour, and so now I buy Nutella-like spreads. I still like a little bit of chocolate, and those are super simple meals, like on the go, to have as a snack on the side of the road. You put a spread, you wrap it up, or you have some tortillas and some fish product like canned tuna, and that's a great quick snack. I also buy oats. That's pretty much what I had for breakfast for the longest time, and then I got over oats and still bought them because, again, a great snack with a lot of nutritional benefits for me. I also would buy packaged salad mixes and mix it with rice and tuna to make it a lot more richer, a lot more filling. Packaged salad on its own was certainly not filling enough for me, but if I mix it again with rice and other items, it worked out fine. On the go, like on just eating, I would buy mango strips. I love mango strips. Again, they're sweet, so anything sweet works for me. Gummy bears, etc. Sweet is good, but it cannot be the only thing that fueled me. And nuts and seeds. Okay, and again, sometimes I would forget that I had nuts and seeds in my pockets, and raccoons got into it. So there we go. All right, so that was question 6. And let's see if I can remove that question from displaying. All right, connect, perfect. And go on a bit of a ride, because once again, my fingers are very cold. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so gorgeous smile. You share routes on Instagram, and it's easy. Yeah, so when I was riding on my cross-Canada tour, I would share routes, not in real time, because again, for safety reasons, I would not want to disclose my locations, but I would describe or give information about where I was staying, which campground, etc. My Instagram account, Wheels on the Bike, just like the YouTube channel. Just Marty King, do you use a phone or bike computer on your bike during trips? Yeah, I use both. I use a Wahoo Element. It's at this point is multiple years old, and it works out fine. So if I do ever plan routes, I do upload it on my Wahoo computer, and that's great. That works great. For any route redirects, for any urban riding, I do use the phone. Google Maps. I have a love-hate relationships with Google Maps. I then, cross-reference. Sometimes I use Google Maps. Sometimes I use Komoot. Sometimes I use Ride with GPS. Ride with GPS is where I do a lot of my tour planning. Okay, Mochi Alex, the mechanic told me that you need a new frame if I want to go touring. Okay, well, if the mechanic told you need a new frame, then consider getting a new frame. Again, ask yourself what kind of touring are you going to do? Are you going to do a little bit more off-roading? Are you going to do road touring? Because that will influence what kind of frame you buy. And consider buying secondhand frames as well, right? If you can get it checked out to see that it's not cracked or whatnot. A lot of people buy secondhand bikes and build them up, and that works out fine. But if you want to buy something brand new, really the only experience I have with a bike brand is the Kona Sutra. That's the only bike I ride. That's the only bike I've toured on, right? So it's difficult for me to suggest something else. Trek is popular. Salsa is another popular bicycle brand. Surly certainly is another popular brand. So there are options. I just can't speak about them because I've not ridden those bikes. What's my Strava ID? I think you should just look for wheels on the bike. Rick, isn't Polish soup a sandwich? I do love sandwiches. No, the Polish soups are soups apparently. Gorgeous smile. Okay, clear. You understand? All right. So, because my hands are getting cold, let us move to a different location and answer and tackle questions 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, 4 more questions. And as I mentioned, please keep the questions coming in the chat. Very happy to answer them if I can. All right, let's keep riding. And I forget that every time I stop, my e-bike turns off. Kidoki. Nothing else is getting cold but my hands. How interesting is that? I should have brought better gloves on the stream, knowing that I would be pulling my hands in and out of my bar mitts. Enough complaining. Let's go. Let's go. Isn't it beautiful? I don't know if the mic is picking up the birds.
JXX unsubscribe to
maybe
the channel.
Maybe I will
JXX unsubscribe
be quiet for a moment so you can hear. Stunning. I love it. I love it here. There's so much nature. All right, stream elements woke up and let me know that somebody subscribed. I don't know if the person is watching the live stream, but thank you for subscribing, JX Sun. And Reno Bicycle, you need heated grips. Yeah, so I don't think the heated grips is the issue here is that I keep taking my hands out of my bar mitts. Typically my hands are just perfectly fine, but because it's a little bit cold, on your left, and because I keep pulling my hands out to read out the questions and handle my phone, that's when my fingers get a little bit cold. Okay, lots of people. Again, this is not as many people as there are in the summertime, but these areas get quite busy with people enjoying. There's an amazing coffee shop right straight ahead of us, or actually to our right. It's called Birds and Beans. They roast their own coffee and it's delicious coffee. Okay, let's see. On your left. I see more people join the stream. Hello and welcome. We are in Toronto, Canada. And I am riding around today answering your bicycle touring questions. So I have 10 questions that were asked on Instagram and on YouTube. On your left, and I'm answering them today. And if you have any questions related to touring, please do ask them in the chat, and I will be happy to answer. Also, if you have any insights to the questions that I am answering, I can only answer from my own perspective. So if you have any insights, please do share them. Ho ho ho. Just found a lovely spot. Let's traverse through the mud. Ooh, slippery. Are you gonna get hit, chat? No. Okay, good. Oh, this is muddy. Oh, Agnieszka. All right. Ah, Le Coyote. Hello, hello. Thanks for joining the chat. Mochi Alex, I'm looking at a 26-inch wheel, 44 Chinese frame. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not a mechanic, and I can't really help you. There may be somebody in the chat can provide any suggestions. Bonsoir, hello, hello, thank you very much. A lot of people here, that's great. Okay, well, let's go on to the next question, shall we? Okay. Question number, I think question number 7. Yep, question number 7 is the next one. Let me put it up on the screen and let's talk about it. Okay, every time I do this, there's a little app that I'm using, and it loses connection when I close it down, and then it needs to reconnect. So this is what is taking a little bit of time, but it's not too bad. Not too bad. Okay, question 7 comes from Shuttle 461. Let me see if question 7, yep, it's displaying. Fantastic. Okay. And Shuttle 461 asks, I've seen bike tours with a flagpole attached to the rear rack. What is that for? Okay, chat, you can contribute to that, as you know. So I think that there's a couple of reasons why people may want to have a flagpole attached to their rear rack. One is for visibility. So I've seen a lot of flagpoles on bikes, on trikes, recumbent trikes, or recumbent bikes, and that is certainly 100% for visibility, and they attach a lot of flags to it or things flapping about to indicate that there's something, you know, low to the ground that is moving around. So for visibility, absolutely. When I was riding across Canada, I was riding with a mother and her son, a 9-year-old child, and they too were riding across Canada. 9 years old, all right? Blew my mind, but he did it. And he had a flagpole with, again, things attached to it, things to advertise their social media, and little flags that were flapping about. So one was to make sure that he was visible to drivers, and then 2 for any social media advertising. Another reason people may want to put a flag on their bike is for identification. So if I put a Canadian flag or a Polish Canadian flag on my bike to indicate that I'm Polish Canadian when I'm riding, I don't know, maybe in Canada, maybe in the US, wherever. So I think that sometimes people use those as a form of identification. And also, some people use these flags as a badge of honor. So if they cross through a country, they put up a country flag, and so on. I did the same on my fender. So I don't have a flagpole, but I do have stickers on my fender. Whenever I would cross into a new province, I would put a sticker on my fender from the previous province. So if you saw my touring bike, it's the rear fender is covered in provincial stickers of Canadian provinces that I had ridden through on my bicycle tour. Let's see. Do you have any other insights, chat, as to why people would put flagpoles on their rear racks? Let me know in the chat. Red Zeppelin, hello, welcome. Welcome to the chat. The world is round. Rick, you have a question about bike maintenance routine while on tour. Okay, so yeah, let me address bike maintenance. I'm just going to hide that question. Okay, hidden app reconnecting. All right, let's wait. We have time, little app. Okay, so Rick, let's address it. What's your bike maintenance routine while on tour? I'm going to move around. My bike maintenance routine. So if you watch any of my cross Canada tour videos, you know that I rode with a degreaser in a bottle. And yes, I carried extra water weight. And that was certainly, that has paid off. And I used dry chain lube on my chain for the most part, unless it rained a lot, and then I would switch to wet lube. And dry lube does not attract as much gunk, as you know, and that was but with dry lube I just had to reapply it a lot more frequently, especially when the weather wasn't full on rainy but a little bit misty, a little bit wet. So I made sure I kept checking that my cassette, my chain was well lubricated, and that to prevent any unnecessary wear and tear as a result. Also, when the dry lube wore out in a rainstorm, it squealed. So that was my first introduction to, you know, what happens when dry lube gets washed off by the rain. Additionally, I would every day clean the chain. Yes, I did it daily, and yes, it took a little bit of time, but I think this is why my bicycle didn't have any mechanical issues throughout. And yeah, so I just went with it. I also used that degreaser on at least a weekly basis to clean the chain and the cassette. And I would find spots with water, and I would use whatever method possible to degrease the chain, make sure the cassette was clean, make sure that just everything was running smoothly. Like, crossing Canada was hugely, you know, it's a big load for a bike to carry, right? Not just in terms of carrying things, but also mechanically. Like, that is a big impactful trip for a bike to handle, and my bike did amazingly well. But I do think that those preventative on the go things that I did absolutely contributed to the bike performing as well as it did and not having any mechanical breakdowns. So hopefully that answers that. That traveling guy riding there reminds me of my rides in Stanley Park. Yeah, right? Only here we have Lake Ontario, so different type of body of water, but yes. Patrick Del Rosario, greetings from Mississauga, watching from Cancun, Mexico. Whoa! Well, aren't you lucky? Thank you for watching. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for joining the chat. Okie dokes. Let's address the next question, shall we? Yeah, this is a good one. Question 8. Not that all the others weren't good, but it's this one is all right. Question number 8 on the screen. Is it on the screen? Let's see. Yes, it is. All right. Joshua 671. Joshua G 671. How do you shower while on the road? And so this is personal hygiene. First things first, I will say that I don't shower every day while on the road. It took a while for me to understand that, or get over the habit of having to shower every single day, because that is something I do as a, you know, as a person who lives in the city. I think that we are certain, like, societal perception is that you must shower every day, but you really don't, and that comes through loud and clear when you're on a bicycle tour. You don't have access to a shower. and you're just fine. Now, different people have different standards of personal hygiene. I've met many bicycle tourists who quite frankly smell, and I'm sorry to be so blunt, but they do, and they're okay with that. I do not like to smell. I don't like body odor to be wafting, from me when I interact with other people, and maybe it does, but I just don't smell it. And as a result, I do like to wash up every single day. This does not mean that I take a shower every single day while on tour. But let's address how you could, in fact, take showers when you're on the road. So you could choose accommodation options that have access to a shower. So maybe a campground with full amenities. Some campgrounds don't have showers. Some campgrounds are more like wilderness hostels that may have an outdoor shower. So that is another option. Choose an accommodation with an outdoor shower facility. Other options are, I think, warm showers hosts. Sometimes I camped, because I don't wild camp, but I did camp at churches. Sometimes they would, the parish priest would let me in to their, their quarters, as it were. And there would be a guest room, and there would be access to a washroom, and I could shower in that environment as well. Where else? I already mentioned this, that I use a Sea to Summit wilderness wash, and I use also the Sea to Summit kitchen sink, and I use those two in combination when I cannot take a shower, but like, let's say I want to soak my feet in something after a long day of riding. I use this Sea to Summit kitchen sink. Put water in it. It makes it into a little bucket, and then I wash up using a little sink or a little bucket. Also, many people use lakes, rivers, whatever, as a water source to wash up, right? So not necessarily a shower, but it's a water source that you can use to wash yourself up. So hopefully that answers your question. Does anyone else have any insights on how to shower while bicycle touring? Do you need it? Do you not need it? Is washing up enough? What do you think? I carry a whole lot of personal hygiene products on a bicycle tour. That is certainly what contributes to a lot of weight on my bike, but I'm okay with it because, again, I don't want to smell. I don't want to go smelly when I don't want to go to sleep when I'm smelly, right? Sometimes in the summertime you sweat a lot. I sweat a lot, and after particularly hot and sweaty days, I want to wash up. Sometimes taking a shower specifically is not possible, but whenever you have access to water, whenever I have access to water, I make do. I think all I need at this point, the basics of bicycle touring for me, if there's access to water, we're good to go. No shower necessary. I can do a whole lot of things in just a small sink. So hopefully that answers the question. Okay. Busy Beck, it's beautiful and sunny. It is. It's beautiful and sunny and cold. I need to move again. Norma, thank you very much for joining the chat. Where did you stay on the Erie Canal trip? Campgrounds or hotels? On the Erie Canal trip, I stayed mostly at the campgrounds. Those videos are going to be released, so you will know exactly where I stayed. But yes, I stayed mostly at campgrounds. I stayed a couple of times at motels. So it's typically not a hotel, and that's a budgetary reason, but motels certainly. Especially when I had multiple days where it would be raining and my gear would be wet, and in those instances I'm happy to stay at a motel, no problem. Red Zeppelin, were you scared at night coming across Canada? Wow. No. And I think that question is always interesting to me, because I'm not sure what, like for example, what should I be scared of in your opinion? Is it bears? Is it people? Is it the dark? Is it, because I think that different people have different perceptions of what others or you yourself may be scared of. So no, I was not scared at night. But I also never put myself in situations where I would feel unsafe. And I think that contributed to me being okay wherever I stayed at night. I do have a video titled "Is It Scary?" It is on my bicycle touring playlist, which is linked below in the description. And in that video, I identify ways in which I make myself as safe, feel as safe as possible when I tour. Joshua Bishop: in the military, I learned baby wipes are the next best thing to bathing. Yes, so when I'm away from places without showers, I would wipe down my body every night, then change into my sleeping clothes. Perfect. Joshua, that's another amazing thing. The reason I didn't mention baby wipes is on the long bicycle tours, like coming across Canada, it took me 5 months. Carrying baby wipes, I thought would be too much, but absolutely. I used to commute by bike to a different location at work, and we didn't have showers there. And I would change and kind of freshen up in just a washroom stall. And at that point, I carried baby wipes, and I would just wipe everything down using baby wipes, and voila, no shower needed, and it was just fine. Right, so you can do a whole lot with just some water, just some washcloths, baby wipes, and you do not need a shower. That traveling guy, you need to go 2 a.m. Oh my lord. Well, thank you for staying. You'll watch the rest later. Thank you very much. You remember that trademark, huh? Quack quack. For any of you who don't get the joke, that traveling guy is pointing back to the early days of my cross Canada videos where I had a conversation with a duck. So for those of you who haven't seen those videos, go watch them. Self-promotion. There you are. Okie dokies. So I think that we're done with this question. Question 8. Let's wait for the app to load. Dum 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 dum. Oh no, we don't want YouTube to be banning my choice of music here. All right, reconnected. Question done. Let's look at question 9 and 10. Question 10 just came in today. Okay, I'm going to move to a different location, and there we are going to address those other questions. Joshua Bishop. The duck always said subscribe. Yep, those ducks were smart, right? They knew exactly what to say. They knew exactly what to say. Okay. Let's get out of here. I don't feel like slip sliding in the mud again. My shoes are going to be filthy. My boots. I'm wearing my winter boots today. No worries. I can wash them. Okay. Okay. Oh Lord, it is really, really nasty looking. Okay. Let's go, chat. Let's go. T. Connolly, you have a question about the weight of my bike. No, this wasn't one of the questions that was asked, nor did I address it. So I will address it. But for the time being, let me warm up. Let me warm up. I need to warm up my hands. Maybe I should minimize my assist level. Okay, so for those of you who are thinking of touring along the waterfront trail, the area we're riding on right now, this is in fact the waterfront trail. So if you ever come through here, you will know what's what. Okay, does the driver see me? Yes. Okay. Beautiful streetcars. I love streetcars. I know this has nothing to do with touring, but I grew up taking streetcars in Poland. I love streetcars. I'm very happy that streetcars are back on the roads. This is Lakeshore specifically. What's happening? On the go. Lots of traffic here today. Do they see me? Yes, they do. Joshua, thank you for your next question. I just see it coming in. We'll add it to the list. We're approaching Royal York. Royal York has bike lanes on it. Also, a lot of the snow is melting. So we had a big snowstorm on Friday, and a lot of it is melting. We're lucky, or I'm lucky rather, that it's a little bit warmer today, and it's not very icy here. I was looking at how icy it was getting yesterday and was worried that that would be my experience riding today. Oh, let's look at that. I've never been here. I'm just trying to find a spot where I could stop and answer just a few more questions. This is a dead-end street. Not a good... So perhaps not a good choice. There was a tiny sliver of an access to the lake over there, but let's check it out. Oops. There we go. Oh, it seems like a parking lot for that building. Okay, no worries. Let's back up. Let's get on the road again and continue. Maybe finding another park. Joshua, I will quickly, or actually, maybe what I can do is I will read T. Connolly's question here. So perhaps I missed this being asked in earlier questions. You did not. What weight is your Kona Sutra touring bike, and what was the total or heaviest load you were carrying? All right. So the Sutra, I don't remember what it weighs exactly, and I have a video that provides that information, but is 12 kilograms, does 12 kilograms make sense? I really don't remember the weight of the bike, but when I was riding across Canada, I had a lot of gear. I was carrying a lot of my electronics, which contribute to the overall weight. And I was also riding through a variety of seasons. So I started in May, and temperatures dipped down to 0 degrees Celsius at that time through the mountains. So I had to be ready for cold weather, bring gear that could protect me from cold weather, and I also had to be ready for the summer. Now, at any point you bring clothing and gear that is a little bit more robust, ready to withstand the weather, it's going to be heavier, and so that also contributed to to my weight being higher. I did end up sending a few things home multiple times. That's also a good solution. If you're carrying too much weight and want to get rid of it, you can just send it back. But one of the days I got onto a truck scale and my total weight was 120 kilograms. And I weigh about 65-70 kilograms. And so the rest of that weight was bike and gear. So let's say 70. So 50 kilograms bike and gear. And I know that that's accurate because when I was flying home or flying to Victoria, I had about 30 kilograms of weight in my bags, panniers, and of course that weather or that weight would fluctuate based on how much water I was carrying and how much food I was carrying. So, and that is considered, carrying 30 kilograms on your bicycle, 35 kilograms sometimes, is a lot. That's a lot of weight. As a result, I got very, very strong. But at the very beginning of my trip, and my friend can attest to it because she was with me, I couldn't climb any hills. I wasn't strong enough to pull that much weight up just hills. I was in Victoria or on the Vancouver Island at that point. I couldn't climb any hills. But in week 2, I was climbing mountain passes. So the weight absolutely contributed to just my body getting super strong. So hopefully that answers your question. What else do we have here that I could answer as I'm riding? Do you prefer panniers or trunk bag if they were the same capacity? I do ride with both. So I do ride with panniers. I also have a trunk bag that doesn't have a huge capacity. So most of my gear, most of my items are certainly stored in the panniers, and I'm able to balance, one side with the other so that there is, so that the bike feels stable. And I also, instead of a trunk bag, when I was riding with my Brompton, because I couldn't get panniers on the Brompton, I had a dry bag as a trunk bag. In fact, I did something similar when I was riding across Canada. Instead of a trunk bag, I had a dry bag, and that's where all my camping gear was stored. So on the upcoming tour where I'll be riding in Poland, I hope to not have to bring the trunk bag. So I'm hoping to really minimize what I bring based on my experience touring on the Brompton. And hopefully I'll be able to just have my 4 panniers, maybe even the smaller ones, and bring my just my front bag, handlebar bag, and that will be sufficient. So let me know my capacity. The capacity of my panniers for the Cross Canada tour was 48, I think it's 48 liters, and that's for 2 bags, so 24 liters each. And the front panniers were 25 liters, so 17 and a half, right? 17 and a half liters each? No, 12 and a half liters each, 25 liters. So Rick, are you going to look with an e-bike? What do you mean by that? Look where? Lots of unique problems to solve. If you can, to tour. I should read on. Am I going to tour with an e-bike? Not at this point, no. I think that if I were to tour on an e-bike, I would need a different e-bike. The e-bike that I have would not get me very far. The battery is too small. And well, I could use, I do put up panniers on the rear rack. I don't have a front rack, so it would have to be a very different type of tour. But again, this e-bike, it's not touring ready. It would be a very, very short tour if I loaded it up and attempted to go somewhere. Reno bicycle, thank you very much for that. So the Sutra weighs around 31 pounds, 14 kilograms. Yeah, perfect. So I was close enough, but not quite there. So, and again, I think that is a base weight. And if you add the front and rear rack, which I do have, and whatever else you have on there, that weight may be slightly different. But there you go. Okay, the Salsa Confluence is only 32 pounds. Okay, so it's comparable to the Sutra, which is 31 pounds. Reno, did you listen to music or podcasts while touring? So for the most part, no. Where I did listen to podcasts heavily was in Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan is a prairie province. I had a lot of really terrible days, terribly windy days. I had a lot of headwind. I had a lot of side headwind, crosswind. So I needed to get out of my mind because I was focusing too much about the horrible experience I was having with the wind. So I started listening to podcasts and music as well. Yeah. But most of the time, I just wanted to listen to nature. I just wanted to hear, birds and nothing because I am surrounded by all the tech in my daily life and I just wanted to disconnect. But when I needed to disconnect, mentally speaking, from feeling too sorry for myself when the wind got too bad, I started listening to podcasts. Okay. B. Griffin, Saskatchewan is an empty, let's go here. It's an empty country. Yeah, there's a lot of empty spaces in Saskatchewan for sure. That's a province where I rode longest distances consistently. So I mentioned in the previous answer that I really don't love riding long distances. My happy distance on the bike is about 80 kilometers. In Saskatchewan, I had to do a lot more because to get from one place to another, it just required a longer distance because I was taking secondary roads. Okay, how about that, chat? How do you like this beautiful area? Whew. I need to warm up my hands because they are still not very warm. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I have hot water here and I'm going to just drink it, hopefully get some circulation going, and in the meantime you can enjoy the lake. Okay. Oh, lots of questions coming through the chat. Thank you. So let's consider them. How do you deal with rain or your eyewear? Other than removing them, I have not found any other way to see while riding in the rain. Yeah, it's tough, right? When you're riding, wearing eyeglasses. I do not remove my glasses when I ride. That would be not a good thing because then I wouldn't be able to see. So I just wipe, literally my finger, and I would just wipe, and that's what I did. Nothing else I could do because even if I put goggles over my glasses, I mean they would also get wet. So yeah, I would just wipe, and at the end of the day, I would wash my glasses with detergent with dishwashing fluid to clean them out. But yeah, when it's I rode through some pretty heavy rain and a lot of it, and I would just go choot choot. All right, what is our host riding? Are you asking me what bike I'm riding? If you use the command !bike, you will get notification from Nightbot, hopefully, that will tell you what bike I'm riding. So I'm riding my e-bike, which is my Nevo, Riesenmuller Nevo, and yeah, and a little bit more information will be provided if you use the !bike command. T. Connolly, my sincerest respect. I didn't think I would be so much, say 35-40 kilograms excluding the bike. That's quite a lot. I remember how hard it was for you at the beginning. Bike weight can vary with frame sizes. Yeah. And you know what? And that is very important to show as well, how difficult bike touring can be when you're completely out of shape. Because a lot of times you watch these bicycle tours and people are like climbing mountains and having, you know, these beautiful days, etc. What I wanted to show in my Crossing Canada videos is how hard it is sometimes. And especially if you don't train ahead of time, which I did not. I did my training as I was riding, and you know, your body will adapt. It just may take some time. And at the beginning, again, I couldn't climb hills. And like I mentioned, in week 2, I was climbing multiple mountain summits, right? So yes, it's hard if you're not in shape at the beginning, but that can turn around and that can change. So that's important to show, and that's important to remember. B. Griffin is Saskatchewan flat, at least. It's pretty flat. There are some hills. No province in Canada, no territory. Well, I haven't ridden in territory, so I won't speak about that. But the provinces I rode through, none of them were flat. And people think that because Saskatchewan is the prairies, there's a lot of agriculture there, that it is fully flat. It's not. If you look at the elevation profiles of my rides in Saskatchewan, definitely not flat. But it's not a mountainous region, so generally flatter. And that's why the winds can just whip you about, because in addition to it being wide open, you have these wide open fields and not many buildings, and so the wind can just play around. And it certainly did with me, and I had a very rough time riding through Saskatchewan. The beach, yes, we are at the beach. Busy Beck, contacts. Yeah, I can't wear contacts. That is a solution for those who can, definitely. There you have it, B. Griffin. You activated the bike command. Thank you. Riesenmuller is nice. Absolutely is. Absolutely is. I'm going to take another sip of water because this seems to be working in getting my fingers a little bit defrosted. Okay, let's get through to the other questions then. We have 2 more questions. Oops. 2 more questions left. Question 9. Yep, question 9 and question 10. So let's wait for the little app to wake up and connect. Here we go. Question 9 should be on the screen. Let's see. Let me double check that it is. B. Griffin, I will address your question in a moment. Okay, so number 9. Question 9 comes from Proud to be Lame 87. Do you use puncture protected tires like Schwalbe Marathon or Schwalbe Marathon Plus, and why or why not? Yes, I did install the Schwalbe Marathon Tour Touring Plus on my bicycle right before I went on tour, and I'm proud to say that I didn't have one flat. I have no flats, and this was amazing to me because I was fully expecting to have punctures during my ride across Canada. So that ride was 8,300 kilometers. Like, that's substantial. That's a substantial distance, and I had 0 punctures on those touring tires. But that's not the only thing that people do. So I know that I ride with, you know, tubes in the tires, but I bought the best tire I could afford to ensure that I would have the least amount of punctures possible. And again, I had none. But other people just ride on regular tires, and then they just address punctures as they happen. Punctures are pretty awful to deal with because, of course, they don't happen on a beautiful sunny day when, you know, you're in the meadow. They happen on the side of the road when there's trucks plowing down at you, where it's busy, it's raining. Like, punctures happen at the worst opportune time, right? So this is why I did everything I could to ensure that my tires were the best they could be and offered the most puncture proofness. But what do other people do? So especially when people bike pack, a lot of people ride with tubeless tires, right? So there's sealant in the tire, there isn't a tube, and when there's a puncture, that sealant then fills the hole, and you don't need to worry about anything. And then you pump it up occasionally or fill more sealant as you have more punctures. But it just tubeless setup. I've never ridden a bike with a tubeless setup, but from what I've seen, it works perfectly for off-roading or bikepacking specifically. Other people put sealant in tubes, so they ride the regular, you know, tubes and a tire setup, but they put sealant in the tubes. And again, when they get a puncture, instead of having to take off the wheel, the sealant then fills in the hole, and that seems to work fine as well. And then another thing that I've heard people doing is using tire liners. So you've got the tube, you then put that tire liner, and then you've got the tire itself, and that helps protect the tube from getting any punctures to the tube. So, you know, whatever solution you come up with, just remember that when you're on the when you're loaded down with gear and you've got a puncture. Again, punctures don't typically happen in a lovely environment. That's when it's nice to change a tire. They typically happen at the worst time, and it's stressful and it's not great. So when thinking about setting your bike for long distance touring, consider the contact points and choose the most robust products that you can afford. Okay. And let's address the next question. That's question 10. And question 10, let me just make sure that question 10 is up on the screen. And yes, it is. Question 10 comes from Surly Stevens 76. What was it like the first time, and what led you to taking the big leap? Now, I wasn't able to follow up on this question. I'm not sure what the big leap refers to. I'm going to interpret it as the big leap refers to my cross Canada ride. I already mentioned what my first time bicycle touring was, but to recap for anyone who may have joined late, I had rented gear. I had borrowed my camping setup from my brother. I thank you for that, Christian. Thank you. And he lent me his camping equipment, and I then my friend drove me to my start of my bicycle tour. We spent the night at the campground, so that gave me a little bit of confidence in having somebody there if anything went wrong. And yes, I did have some mechanical issues that first tour. But you know what? With everything I troubleshot through, with every successful troubleshooting, I developed a set of new mechanical skills, and that gave me a lot of confidence to be to know that I can just figure things out, right? I think a lot of people, again, I mentioned this at the beginning, so it's great to mention it at the end with the last question. A lot of people say to themselves, well, I don't know how to do anything mechanical on the bike, and therefore I can't go on tour. But you know, think about driving a car. Many people who drive cars, they're not mechanics, right? So, and they still drive, they still go on trips, etc. And I apply the same kind of thinking towards bike mechanics. No, I don't know how to fix my bike, but yes, there are people out there who know how to fix my bike, so I just need to get my bike to them and they will help me. And also those people who know how to fix bikes may be the people that are riding behind you, other bicycle tourists. So what led me to, to address the second part of the question, what led me to taking the big leap into riding across Canada? So I rode across Canada in 2022, and I was just, I needed a break from the pandemic, right? I think the pandemic affected us all in different ways, and I needed to get out of the rut of just being in that weird state that the pandemic brought on for me. And so I like jumping into things head on, fully immersing myself in the biggest things, and that's how I typically function well. That's when I, you know, start thinking and troubleshooting and figuring things out, and that jolts me back into like fully functioning self. So that's why I did it. And also, you know, for years I had watched other people's videos of riding across Canada and hearing their stories, and I also wanted to do that. You know, at some point I wanted to stop watching and start doing. So that was what I did. For any of you who did a big trip, why did you do it? What was the motivator for you riding a big ride or a long tour? Okay, so those were all the questions that I had come through Instagram, social media, and YouTube. Thank you very much for everyone, to all of you who had added those questions, who had shared those questions. I appreciate it. Let's see, I'm just going to go back in the chat and see. Okay, so there's quite a bit of conversation. Thank you, everyone. This is fabulous. Okay. You're using a bike command. Fantastic. All right. B. Griffin, you haven't seen the bike touring videos, but what did you do for accommodations? Did you camp a lot, hotels, sometimes Airbnb? Okay. So my primary means of accommodation was campgrounds. I wild camped, which means there was not a campground. I just camped in the middle of nowhere, I think 4 times in total while riding across Canada. I'm not comfortable wild camping. If I couldn't find a place to camp, I would consider Warm Showers hosts. So this is a community of people who are often riders themselves, who open up their homes and accommodate you inside their home, or perhaps outside in their backyard or wherever they have space. So Warm Showers community, incredible, and I certainly took advantage of those hosts, and I met people along the way all throughout Canada as a result. And the next thing I did is I would find a place of worship, most often a church, and I would ask them if I could stay on their property. Again, I'm not comfortable with wild camping. I would rather approach people and ask if I can stay on their property than just wild camp. So I would arrive in the city, try to identify if there was a campground. If there wasn't, I would go find a church, ask if I could stay, and 100% of the time I was able to stay, either sometimes inside, sometimes outside on their grounds. And then I would also do the same with people. I would just knock on their doors and ask if I can stay, if I can just camp in their backyard. And oftentimes I would be invited inside and, you know, given food, dinner, breakfast, etc. So I also sometimes just met people by talking to them. In Saskatchewan, I met an amazing newcomer couple, and they worked at a Subway, and you know, they saw this super tired looking cyclist come in, order this massive meal, and we just started talking. And then after I finished my meal, I was going to ride off and look for a campground, and they walked up to me and said, look, would you be our guest tonight? And they, you know, and so I didn't ask, but they offered. So those things happened as well. Sometimes I would meet people riding at a rest stop, and they would say, hey, I live in province XYZ. If you're riding through town XYZ, then you can, you know, here's our contact. Feel free to stay with us. So that's what I did for accommodation. And of course, I also stayed at motels, but those were few and far between. I had a budget, I mentioned, of $50 a day, and this included accommodation, food, anything else that I wanted to spend on. So motels in Canada are very expensive, 100 plus Canadian dollars. So that definitely would blow my budget immediately. So I did stay in some, but not too many. Busy Beck, thank you very much for the vote of confidence. Watch them, you'll enjoy them. Thank you. Okay, bacon, eggs, and hash. Hey, thanks for joining the chat. I appreciate it. Bacon, eggs, always have a backup plan. Absolutely, especially when route planning. I really hardly ever have a day where I plan a route and I can just follow the route. That often does not happen. Biking NS Mark 75, thank you. I just installed Continental Tour tires, heavy but paired with lightweight plastic inner tubes. Roll pretty good. Excellent. So that's another option, Continental Tour tires. Yeah, and the Schwalbe Marathon Touring Plus are also heavy, right? So again, I mentioned this at the beginning of the stream. I don't often worry so much about weight, because when I tour, I'm going to be loaded up. The bike is going to be loaded up. I don't care about being aero. I don't often care about the weight. No, I don't want to be carrying 100 kilograms on the bike, but you know, a pound here or there, not a big deal for me. So yes, good tires often weigh a lot. T. Connolly, have you found a perfect tent, or at least an optimal solution to your leaking or dripping tent problems? This was a major issue several times to you. Yeah, thank you for flagging this. I went through 3 tents on my bicycle tour. The first tent I had was the MSR Hubba Hubba, which is like a touring favorite for many people. I had bought it brand new. It was a leaker. It had multiple problems, and MSR was horrible in terms of their customer service in trying to identify what the issue was. So I ended up returning that tent to MEC or MEC, and that's where I had purchased it. The second tent I had was the C2 Summit Telos. That was the very first iteration of a tent for them. So that tent was even worse of a leaker than the MSR Hubba Hubba. However, as a company and their customer service, C2 Summit was incredible. They sent me the tent or the fly replacement while I was on the road. They were in constant communication with me. Unfortunately, their product, that first iteration of that tent, was not good. It was just leaking for me. And I would spend days, I have, you know, videos of the tent, of attempting to stay in the tent in the middle of a massive storm, rainstorm, and the tent just leaking everywhere, and it was the fly that was leaking. So, and the third tent that I ended up buying that worked incredibly well is the big Agnes Bikepacking tent. It's a 2-person tent that's really good for 1.5 person, so 1 person and their gear, and it's been incredible. So all of these tents were like high-end tents. Prior to that, I had a very cheap Amazon Nature Hike tent, and the reason I didn't take that tent with me is that it only had 1 door, and for safety and security, I want to have 2 doors to be able to either make a quick exit through one or the other. You know, if a bear is on one side, I want to have an exit point on the other side or whatnot. So for my safety and security, I wanted to have 2 doors, and also for ventilation, having 2 doors is better, etc. So thank you for that question. Bacon, Eggs and Hash asks, how many bears did you encounter and what did you do? I didn't encounter any, I didn't have any close calls with bears. I had many close calls with raccoons. Bears, you know, I was also quite worried about bears, especially when riding through BC and Alberta. Lots of bears, grizzly bears, black bears, and they weren't a problem. But they weren't a problem because I was very cognizant of what to do. So I never stored my food near the tent. I never put any, you know, scented lotions on my body before going to bed. Basically, I did everything I could to prevent animals from approaching my tent, especially at night, especially when I was sleeping. I also didn't eat anywhere close to my tent. I always put my food bags either in the washrooms, or a lot of the times in BC and Alberta, they had these bear containers. And when I was riding through like really wild parts, maybe some off-road bits, I would make sure to make a lot of noise. So I would sing, I would make a lot of noise so that I would be heard. Because another instance of where you could see a bear is you want to startle. I didn't want to startle it, or I didn't want to come up on it when it was eating, or when there were young bears. So yes, I passed next to a couple of bears, a mama and 2 cubs, on the side of the road on the highway. And what I did is I started making noise the moment I saw it, and then I crossed to the other side. And I did this with other animals like elk. Wild animals are wild animals. They can hurt you, right? So I wanted to create as much distance as between myself and them as possible. This is not to say that a bear who would charge at me would be deterred by a highway. It wouldn't be. But I just wanted to give them as much space as possible. Also, animals smell us from very far away. They also smell our food from very far away. So I just applied those. So I applied what I just mentioned to keep myself as bear aware as possible. Yep. So I didn't see many bears. I saw many in the distance. In fact, when I took some days off, my family came to visit me in Jasper, and we went up north to a hot spring around Jasper. We saw a lot of bears there, and we saw them very close by because there were just many of them up there. But when I was riding, they weren't an issue. Bacon, Eggs and Hash, take short trips as a trial run. Yep, I think you may be referring to the first question. That's a great suggestion. Taking short trips before jumping into something much longer is a good idea. Joshua, you know how I feel. The pandemic pushed me to hike across the US over 5,000 miles. What? It's amazing to me when I meet people who like hike and walk these distances. I ended up meeting a woman in Nova Scotia who was hiking the Trans-Canada Trail by herself. They refer to them as they, them. Their pronouns are they, them. But I met them in Nova Scotia, and it was incredible to have a chat about what motivated them and what they were doing to keep safe and secure, right? Because there's commonalities there. I also met a man from Germany, right in BC, who was walking around the world pulling a trailer that he attached on like a belt harness, a hip harness. Incredible, meeting people who do these amazing things. It's incredible. Okay, what else do we have here? So there's somebody else who has Continental tires. Thank you very much for sharing that information, because it's important to know what other types of gear is out there. B. Griffin, yeah, good ideas. I'm glad that you're able to draw some thoughtful ideas from me sharing my experience. People are very nice, yes. Bacon, eggs, and hash. You saw the video of a leaky tent. I felt so bad for you. Yeah. I felt bad for myself too. Thank you. But again, like what I share in videos is just like one time of the tent leaking, and you know, I had 2 tents that leaked, and it was just not nice. When a tent leaks on you, it's not great. It's not great because it's your shelter. B. Griffin, Big Agnes bikepacking tent. Good to know. Yep. And that tent specifically has shorter poles, so it's great for storing it in a pannier, or I stored it in a dry sack or a rear bag, or back at the rear. Joshua Bishop, you followed the American Discovery Trail. Yeah. B. Griffin, $500 tents. Yeah, so in Canada they cost close to $600. Like they're not cheap tents, right? So you would expect a tent that is in that price range to be of incredible quality. Again, I mentioned the nature hike tent, for which I paid just over $100 on Amazon. That never leaked. It wasn't an ideal tent, and I chose to buy another one. But you know, if a $100 tent doesn't leak and a $600 tent does leak, there's a problem there. There's a problem there. Adventures with Josie. Hello. Hi, Josie. Shout out to Josie, who's another bicycle tourist out there. She's also a photographer, so if you don't follow her channel, if you don't follow her on social media, consider doing so. You mentioned that you would probably never buy an MSR tent because I've heard a lot of bad things about them. Yeah, so they used to be like the cult favorite of hikers and bicycle tourists, but something happened in the design of their 2021 products. That's when I bought my tent. And they just changed how they make them. They just changed something. They changed how they address the seams. My tent didn't come seam sealed because they were using a different stitching practice. I'm like, seam seal the seams, because that's where the tent started dripping, and then it had condensation issues due to the fabric. That it was just odd. The whole tent was very difficult to manage, and what I really was upset with and disappointed with is MSR being very dismissive in dealing with it. So as a customer, I was on a bike tour. It was a multi-month bicycle tour, and when I wanted to send, they asked me to send the fly for them to do their quality assurance with, and I said, that's fine, I will send you the fly, no problem, but can you send me a fly that I can use to continue my bicycle tour? And they said nope. So I'm not sure what they were expecting me to do. Like, should I just sleep in a tent that doesn't have a fly? Yes, I can do this on nice days, but most days, and for privacy, I wanted a fly. So I was very disappointed with MSR's customer service in general, and in dealing with a product that was quite obviously faulty. But luckily, I was able to return that tent. Bacon, eggs, and hash. I have a Big Agnes. I spent $400 on it. A good budget tent with high quality are Marmot tents. Okay, half a price and just as good. Yep, I've seen Marmot tents around as well. So again, I think that it's a matter of finding a tent which design works for you, that is waterproof. Waterproof tents are it's so important for a tent to be waterproof. Because you will, if you go on a longer distance tour, there will be days where it's going to be raining, it's going to be pouring, and you need to be ready for that. Adventures with Josie, you have a hot core tent that was just under $200, has never leaked so far. Yeah, so that's the similar experience with a nature hike tent that I had, that I purchased for $100, just over $100 on Amazon, and that one had never leaked either. Okay, so those were all of the questions I had received from viewers on YouTube and people on Instagram asking those questions. And so I think that, yeah, unless you have any other questions, I am going to ride back to Humber Bay and finish the stream there. So if you want to join me in riding back to Humber Bay, and I think I will go to, what is the Sheldon's Point lookout point, Sheldon's Rock lookout point, around there, right by the Humber Bay Arch Bridge. Let's go there together. And if you want to continue adding information in the chat about, you know, anything that is specific to bicycle touring, anything of, you know, of importance to new people starting touring, what were some of the things that you learned as a brand new bicycle tourist? How did you build your confidence as a new bicycle tourist? Because a lot of it, you know, a lot of what prevents new people from picking up bicycle touring is overthinking, right? Overthinking, focusing more about the unknowns rather than focusing on the things that they can control. So if you share any of what helped you as a new bicycle tourist in the chat, I know that other people will be able to read your comments and draw from your insights as well. Yeah, thank you very much for that, Bacon, Eggs and Hash. I appreciate you participating in the conversation as well. Okay, so let us go. Let's get out of the sand. You know, I do all the wrong things, yeah? Get myself in mud, get myself in wet sand. Okay, let me put this back on. I do have to share that after drinking my hot water, my hands are much better. There we go. That's my secret weapon of winter cycling. In the morning, on my morning commutes, I bring in hot chocolate or hot coffee on my rides to work. And today I substituted that coffee with hot water. Okay, let's see if we can pass. T. Connolly, epic Q&A. Oh, thank you for that. Passing a left. Thank you very much. What I will do after I return is I'm going to put or add timestamps for all the questions, because I think if anyone is watching, following this live event, they may want to jump straight to the questions as opposed to watch me pedal from one place to another. You know, I think another thing that I wanted to mention in all of this is bicycle touring is very unique to every person, right? And I think that sometimes, well, I certainly get comments from people telling me that you carry too much and you're doing this wrong and you're doing that wrong. And the fact is, there's no wrong way to do your bicycle tour. The touring experience you will be yours. And for some people, it matters that they travel with the lightest gear and they take as little as possible, and they ride as far as they can with minimal load, and that is a perfect way for them to bicycle tour. For me, as I mentioned at the beginning of this live stream, I focus on comfort. As a middle-aged woman, again, I need to be comfortable. I cannot sleep on rocks. I need to take care of my body so then I can continue bicycle touring. And that comes with a weight penalty, right? That those comfortable mats that are thicker, etc., that is all heavier. But I'm okay with that. I can carry all the things. So if you are thinking of going on a bicycle tour, craft your tour with what makes you comfortable in mind, and don't focus too much about how other people are doing it. Basically, don't compare yourself to others, and focus on creating an experience you're going to be happy with. You can certainly borrow ideas from others and look at how other people have done their tours, but then adapt them to you. And also, don't get influenced by others telling you you're doing it wrong. Because if somebody tells you that, I don't know, I believe that their opinion is not much worth it. Especially if they don't know you. So there we go. That's my pep talk. That's what I wanted to share with you. Bacon, eggs, and hash, well said. Thank you. Yes, the whole point of touring is that you enjoy it, right? And some people may want to enjoy, some people go on tour because they enjoy the riding aspect of it. So in that instance, maybe yes, you want to do credit card touring. You want to take just the bare necessities and not be hauling all the items. Some people want to tour because they want to haul all the items with them. They want to be fully self-supported. They want to go out in the wilderness, right? Some people are very good at wild camping, and they want to be as far from, you know, urban areas, towns, cities as possible. One thing I didn't mention is that the reason I don't wild camp is in Canada, wild camping is not legally permitted unless you are wild camping on Crown land. Now, Crown land is not really easily identified. There are maps online, but when you get to a piece of land in Canada, it doesn't say that it's Crown land or not, so you just have to be aware. But also, people are just wild camp anywhere. They will set up their tent anywhere, and that's okay if they want to have that experience. But you don't have to wild camp when you're on a bicycle tour. That can be one of your accommodation options, but it doesn't have to be the only accommodation option, because there are others. Yeah. Joshua, my gear is ultra light gear, but my pack is always heavy because I like to be comfortable even when backpacking. I always have a chair or a cot. Yeah, there you go. Right, so if you speak to many people, they're like, you don't need a chair, just sit on the ground, bring a mat. And that's okay. I also have a chair and I bring it, and I love sitting on my chair. And I do not love sitting on a rock. So there you go. Let's see, I think I missed a few comments here. Yeah, adventures with Josie. Totally agree. Do your trip your own way. Bring what you want. Use what you want. Stay where you want. Eat what you want. Ride as many kilometers as you want. Exactly. Yes. Do your trip your own way. Don't think you have to do it like everybody else. Absolutely. Adventures with Josie. What's the little bag you're wearing? Do you mean, Josie, do you mean this bag? This little bag? I think, well, that's the only bag I'm wearing. So this is a little Arc'teryx bag. It's a crossbody bag. I'm not sure what to call it, Josie. It's a little Arc'teryx bag. I've had it for years, and I use it often. I don't have a purse. I use this little bag. Adventures with Josie. We camped during our first 2 bike trips and stayed at B&Bs during our 3rd trip. Yeah. So I am now considering what to do for my tour in Poland. Whether I should even take my camping setup. Now, riding self-supported fully is, it takes up more gear, right? You have to take your camping setup, you have to take your sleeping bag, etc. And then your kitchen supplies and everything. So I'm considering whether I could maybe do more of a credit card tour in Poland. This doesn't mean that I would not carry things with me. I would still have my kitchen supplies so that I could, you know, stop and eat and stay more budget friendly that way. But I'm considering whether I need to bring my camping setup to Poland. I think in the end I will, just to be a lot more flexible about where I can stay. But I have to dip into Polish community forums specific to bicycle touring and ask people for their opinions. Because maybe it will also be cost effective to stay at these little Airbnbs, hostels, etc. So I have to find that out. Yes, Josie, I will be in Poland this year, in May. I am super thrilled about it. And this will be my first non-North American trip on the bike. I've traveled to other countries, but not on the bike. So it will be a great experience. I think it will be very different. Josie, you didn't camp on your 3rd trip for a few reasons. Safety. You didn't want to bring as much gear as well. And you could have longer riding days, yeah. Most bed and breakfasts also provide breakfast, yeah. I think anytime people give you food, anytime you don't have to think about what you're going to be prepping for breakfast, that's a big plus for me. Oh, Joshua, you hiked the Camino de Santiago. I have a friend whose brother just finished that, a part of Camino de Santiago. You didn't carry a tent because they have a lot of cheap hostels, right? Do Canada have them? Canada does not have a lot of cheap hostels. It really depends where. Hostels, you can find them more in urban areas, of course. Are they that cheap? They're not that cheap. On the Icefields Parkway in Alberta, when I rode through there, they have these wilderness hostels. So one of them I stayed at had the outdoor shower, but also that hostel was not cheap. I think anything in North America in terms of accommodation is not cheap. Now, the only time I found very reasonable and very cost-effective solution was they were piloting these hiker-biker rates, communal campgrounds on the Icefields Parkway. And I think the camping fee was like $10 for anybody on the bike. And you would have to share a campsite. And it was perfectly fine. Because all these bikers, all these people touring have these little teeny tiny tents. And yeah, we don't take a whole lot of space. So they were piloting that kind of setup on the Icefields Parkway. Not in every campground, in a few campgrounds. Another option, if you know, talking about cost and savings, if you are approaching a campground, another option is to approach people who are already camping, who already have a spot, and ask if you can share a campsite with them. And you know, you can offer to pay. And that's another way of yeah, being a little bit more cost effective with accommodation as you ride your bike. Because accommodation, I found that accommodation was the most money hungry item I had to consider in my budget. And we are back on the Martin Goodman Trail. Fewer people here now. Okay. Lake Ontario, much more quiet it seems right now. I think maybe it's a little bit less windy right now. And we are heading towards the Humber Bay Arch Bridge. There's more people here. That coffee shop that I mentioned, Birds and Beans coffee shop, that's now to our left. Still one of the better local coffee shops for me. Rick, thank you for that comment. I'm a person with anxiety and long trips help. Yeah. There are quite a few videos on that topic, right? Where cycling, long distance touring helps with anxiety, helps with mental health. Because, you know, depending on how and where you cycle, a lot of the times you're out in the nature and enjoying, and nature also has a very calming and positive effect on our state of being. This is one of the reasons that, you know, riding my commute to work is so very relaxing. I get to commute by the lake. I get to see all the beautiful nature. I get to look at the swans. I mean, that just really all contributes to a better state of mind, all right off the get-go. Joshua, thank you for that. Chicago, where I live, there's a hostel for, yeah, $40 a night. That's $40 American, right? So again, when you convert it to Canadian, that's over 50. And yeah, North America is just very expensive for accommodation, and oftentimes the quality you get for the very high prices is awful. You know, many of the motels I stayed in, both in the States and Canada, you're paying close to $100, and it's like a rundown, like a properly rundown place. And yeah, the fees are exorbitant. So sometimes, in fact, a lot of the times, my tent is just a much nicer solution. But if your tent is wet, then you've got to consider other options, right? And that's when I typically stay if there isn't a warm showers host in the area that can accommodate me, or anywhere where I can stay indoors. Well, then I will pay for an overpriced motel accommodation. Beautiful birds and huge, yeah. I saw a pair of trumpeter swans a while back in Wisconsin. Yes, swans are stunning, and we have quite a few of them here. And they're just so majestic, aren't they? Also very territorial. My dog is always very interested in them, but in comparison, she's a teeny tiny little speck. Teeny tiny little animal, and she always gets too close and they always chase after her. Okay, in a moment we're going to be crossing the first bridge of Humber Bay. That's the Mimico Creek Bridge. On your left. Let's see, pretty empty. That's very good. In the summer, again, I always refer to the summer because that's where the tourist season is at its peak. This bridge, along with the Humber Bay Arch Bridge, are packed with people. We will do some live streams in the summer, so you will know what I mean. Okay. For those of you who were here when I started the stream, this is where we started the stream. So just about a kilometer up ahead is the second bridge. I see lots of people taking photos here. It's such a beautiful day, and this area is so picturesque that it's very popular destination for photo taking. A lot of wildlife photographers come here. Again, see, as you saw, there's a lot of birds, there's a lot of wildlife. This person is walking. These are walking in the bike lane. I shouldn't say it's a bike lane, it's a multi-use trail. I'm curious as to what the weather is like right now. Can someone use the weather command? Exclamation point weather. It feels very cold. So exclamation point weather will bring up weather information. Thank you, Joshua. So Joshua, I don't know. Oh, there, Nightbot replied. Fantastic. 1 Celsius. Huh. It went up. But it feels so cold. I'm very glad to be wearing my balaclava today. I was wondering, I looked at the temperature and I thought, it's not so bad. It's more like a spring temperature. I would have frozen. Yeah, it does feel unusually cold today. It's 0 Celsius up where you live. Wow. Wow, I'm surprised, Josie. I'm surprised to hear that. I thought it would be a lot colder up there. Okay, but I don't know if you can tell by how people are dressed that, yeah, a lot of people have masks on their faces or shawls on their faces. It is, yeah, it's cold. Okay. So we are now approaching the Humber Bay Arch Bridge and the Sheldon Lookout Point. I say this every time, but every time I see this bridge, I love it. And this is Sheldon Lookout Point. This lookout point has unobstructed views of the skyline of Toronto. Thank you. And of course the beautiful Humber Bay Arch Bridge. There's the bridge, everyone. I'll give you a second to enjoy it as I take a sip of water. I agree, Josie. It's a nice view. No, it's not a new bridge. I'm not exactly sure when it was built, but definitely not a new bridge. Okay, and this is the skyline of Toronto. CN Tower in the distance. I recognize the camera is not going to be picking it up. People are staring at me because I seemingly am speaking to myself. But I'm not, chat. You tell them I'm talking to you. Okay. All right, everyone. This is where I'm going to finish up with the stream. And to all of you who stayed with me, thank you very much. I appreciate you being with me. I appreciate your questions and your contribution to the chat, for sharing your ideas, for, again, allowing other people to learn from your experience, and of course, for also asking the questions. We all learn from others. We all learn from making mistakes as well. If you are interested in any of the products, any of the channels I mentioned, then many of them are linked in the description below. Following the live stream, I will be going back and putting timestamps to all the questions that I answered, questions that I had prepped, and questions that came up in the chat. So once again, thank you very much for asking them. And that's all. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Enjoy the week. And I will see you in the next one. Rick, thank you very much for that super chat. I do appreciate it. All right, everyone. Oh, there's another question here. Do you add electrolytes to your water? No, I do not. I do not. This is just hot water that I'm drinking just on its own. Okay? Have a great day, everyone. Bye. Slava Ukraine. Yes, thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for the stream. Thank you for watching and participating. Bye, everyone.